Unleash Your Supernova Live. I am your host, Lorraine, and the author of Unleash Your Supernova, available at your favorite bookstores. I'm also a mother of four, the founder of Raine Magazine, Pink Kangaru, the Raine School of Fashion, and Nova Lorraine International. I am here with one of my favorite people in the world, my co-host, Ryon Anderson, founder of Ryon Esquire, a business and peak performance coaching and consulting company. He'll be joining me as my partner in crime as we help you unleash your supernova. If you end up liking Ryon as much as I do, you can get more by checking out RyonEsquire.com. That's Ryon with an O, R-Y-O-N, Esquire.com. Join the fun live every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern as we help you increase creativity, beat burnout, and happily survive the roller coaster of creative entrepreneurship. This show is the companion to the book, Unleash Your Supernova, your go-to guide for immediately usable tips on mindset, creativity hacks, decreasing stress, and unlocking your limitless potential. If you miss us on Fridays on BBS Radio, no problem. Make sure to download and subscribe to the Unleash Your Supernova podcast. Hey, Ryon.
Hey, how's it going, Nova?
I'm good. You know, I just finished watching WandaVision with my kids. Are you a Marvel fan?
I'm not a super fan. I'm aware because I have friends who are super nerds and keep me informed. But I know I've seen it on Netflix, right? It's a Netflix show?
I think so. You know what? I'm not sure which channel we watched it on because they're releasing a show once a week. So we're not doing the binge watching like most shows nowadays that we watch. And it's funny to see my kids because they are literally a wreck because they can't watch another episode afterwards. And I'm like, this is what we used to do back in the day. Like, this was regular TV watching before Netflix, okay?
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting show, though. I'm getting hooked.
Are you? Yeah. I'm having a hard time finding a show I really, really love right now. My favorite show recently was Suits, which is not that recent, but that was my binge-worthy. I could sit for a week. Yeah, I loved it. And I've really been looking for a while, and I've got some that I'm watching, but none that I love. So that's kind of where I am right now.
I heard of Suits. I never watched it, but I heard that the fashion was incredible, or is incredible.
Oh, absolutely,
so
yeah. If you like women who are in power positions, power jobs, and dress elegantly and sophisticated, but with a little bit of style and flair, it's the show for you. Yeah, totally.
Okay. Well, I don't get around to watching TV too often, but I am dragged in on the weekends to watch anime with my family. My youngest son is a big anime fan, so that tends to be our weekend deal. If we're not on the road traveling for gymnastics, that's what I'm doing.
Or you're not snowed in middle of Amish country.
I know, right? 2 feet of snow. What is that all about?
Yeah. Well, I'm in Austin, Texas, where it's 75 degrees today. So that whole 2 foot of snow thing, I'm not real familiar with. So, you'll have to. A, you can keep it up there, and B, you'll have to let me know what it's really like.
Well, I don't know if this is going to be forever for me, but I'll bear through it. But I will say I did brave the cold last weekend. I went out running every day before we got snowed in, and it was 20 degrees outside. I just bundled up, put my ski jacket on, because, I get cold really easily. And I was like, you know what? If I could do it in 20-degree weather while it's snowing, listen. Okay? No more excuses. I could do it whenever. So I was really proud of myself because not only was I outside in the cold, but I was also running. And I haven't run in a minute. I've been walking a lot, but not running. So I was really proud of myself.
It is good. I know. I love the no excuses except for the 2 foot of snow part. That's well played. So.
Well, you know what? Today we're going to talk about how to start with your why when it comes to your business, and actually how it also applies to everything in your life, actually. And it's something that I think as entrepreneurs, we sort of take for granted. We come up with this idea, and we're like, great, we want to plunge ahead. Let's go for it. Let's do it. And then, months in, sometimes weeks, and sometimes it may take years, we're either burnt out or miserable or on a hamster wheel that we created, and we can't figure out why. And so I thought it was really important to put this topic in my book because I know I went through that journey, and I know that it's really good to reflect on why you're doing something frequently, right? Because we just get caught up in circumstances. And so I think it's a really great topic that we can talk about today.
Absolutely.
So you know what? I think what I'll do to start things off is I'm going to read a passage from the Unleash Your Supernova book, and then we'll just dive in.
Okay,
I think you're going to like this one.
Yeah.
One day, so this is the book for those of you who have it and or will be getting it. Hint, hint, hint. Others have seen what is and asked why. I've seen what could be and asked why not. And that's a quote by Pablo Picasso. And the section is, it starts with the why. One day, a colleague and friend, Ryon Anderson, mindset coach and brain theory expert, asked me a simple question, why? Why? I repeated back to him, yes. Why are you doing what you're doing? I want you to really think about that. I want you to go back to your original why, he said. I paused for a long moment as I thought to myself, why? It's been a long time since I thought about this. And this was the first time I was asked to go back to my original inspiration behind all that I was doing. Quite a few years had passed since the day I chose this unpredictable path I'm currently on. After a moment of silence, I took a mental trip back to my past, to the time when I was not yet married, a mother, or a seasoned creative. I hadn't any entrepreneurial endeavors of my own or even lived in a big city. During that phase of my life, although very young and naive, I was full of passion and had a clear vision for what I wanted to do in life. And more importantly, why? Then my thoughts jolted me back to the present moment. I pondered, what about now? After my coach's question sunk in, I realized that, of course, I knew the answer. To help people, I thought to myself. It's always been about aiding others. So I'm going to stop there because I feel that my why was something that intuitively came to me and has pretty much stayed true, even though my how has changed many times.
Multiple times, yeah.
But I want to put this back on you, and I want you to share with me either a moment you figured out your why or had to figure out your why to reverse the course of anything that you were doing.
You've been waiting a year to turn these tables on me, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
yeah, I figured that. It's a really, really good and interesting question. And it's funny because why was my favorite question as a child growing up. I mean, it still is today as an adult, which it goes back to why I asked you that question in the beginning. Because I think it's just such a root question. It's such a simple but profound question that, depending on how what you're asking it to specifically, can be really, really difficult to answer. And, my why, as far as like why I do what I do, it really kind of didn't come from why do I want to be a coach? It was much deeper to why am I here, to the point of what am I here to do? So my why kind of became what, and it became a long journey. And it took we're talking, I probably was able to answer this question legitimately, correctly for me about a year ago. And it goes back to identity, which you and I have discussed before. And what's so important about identity is it's the way in which you see yourself in the world and your role in that world, right? And for me, part of my story is I lost my vision at 11 years old from an illness, right? I was almost 12. Up until then, my goal in life was being an NFL quarterback. I mean, that was what I was going to do with my life. I mean, I'm the kid in the backyard, throwing a football, tire swing, because my idol was Joe Montana, and that's what he had done. I'd read about it, doing things that you do as a coach that teach people how to model the role models, all the stuff that I was doing unknowingly, right? And I mean, I'm like stealing plays in the video games, taking my to recess, and making my friends like run these routes. I mean, all these things that I'm doing to like achieve my dream, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, I randomly get sick, have a brain abscess, my brain swells, hits the nerves and make you see where they cross, and boom, I wake up literally overnight, cannot see, right? Dreams completely gone. I'm supposed to be dead or severely brain damaged, and luckily all I had was not be able to see, right? Well, the problem was my identity was gone. Like, I had no idea who I was, right, or who I was anymore, where I was going to be, because my dreams were gone. And I went through life and did the things I was supposed to do. Like, I graduated high school, I went to college, got a master's in counseling psych, went to law school, a law degree, member of Texas. All the things that we're taught that we're supposed to do, it looks like I'm super successful, right? But I was just doing them because the reality was it kept me in school and allowed me to be social with friends and not, living at home with my parents, right? So not a very compelling or redeeming why, right? So, I got a job, and then I hated it. I hated being behind a desk. I just didn't like the research and writing. I didn't like the environment. I didn't like who I was becoming. I was becoming very negative because, A, the environment, and B, being a lawyer, it's kind of a very negative mindset. So I really started examining, what do I want to do with my life? Who do I want to be, right? And that led to taking self-development classes and coaching classes and business coaching classes. And along that journey, this goes back to the identity part, that's when I discovered that, I still see myself as that NFL quarterback. I'm still that person.
Okay.
It just switched from, the tangible things. How far can you throw a ball? How pretty is your spiral? How accurate are you? More toward leadership things, right? Like leader of, in this case, example would be men, right? Vision, uniting people behind a common purpose, right? And that really helped me answer my why, because once I knew who I was, what my role in the world was, I now knew what my why was. And my why is, I get up because I want to help shape the leaders of tomorrow, right? Whether it's business, whether it's athletes, whatever it may be. And I do this because I want to make the world a better place. And that has become my why, right? It took a long time.
So let me jump in. Yeah, no, I want to jump in there because there was something that you said a couple minutes ago that initially your why wasn't a noble why, right? You're like, well, I wanted to be an NFL, player, right?
Right.
That was one of your original whys. And I think that, just a comment on that, I think that it's so important, for individuals that are trying to figure out their why to really make sure they're not using any judgment, right? Because we have these preconceived notions and we have, the expectations of the individuals in our social circles, maybe family, friends, bosses, whomever, and or society. And I think that it's important as we are exploring that why. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Why did I choose to go running last weekend, in 20-degree weather? Why did I choose to pivot from psychology to fashion? Why did I choose to become a mother? I think that when we're examining these whys, we really should be careful to not put any judgment around it and really let that feeling guide us. And so I have this whole system that I created, but just to give the really mini version, simplified version, is when you're figuring out your why and you're asking yourself that question, two things, and you're going to feel your way to the right answer. Does it feel good or does it not? Does it feel good for that why to be the NFL player? Yes or no? Does it feel good for that why to really shape and impact leaders, that you had mentioned your current why is? Yes or no? And if the answer doesn't feel good, then that's when you should re-examine what you're doing, because maybe you're not doing it for the right reasons. A lot of times we pursue something to impress someone, to make up for something, for accolades or whatever it is. And it's not really in line with what we really want to do or who we really want to be. And that inner gut really knows what we want. I mean, not all of us pay attention to it, but
Right.
it really knows. And if we kind of just slow down and listen, then we can better navigate ourselves through our feelings and our emotions. So I just wanted to touch on that as well.
No,
and
I agree.
Yeah, go ahead.
And there was a part of that you mentioned that I think is important too. Like for me, you mentioned like, your gut will let you know if it's right. For me, it wasn't that I didn't, like that identity of the NFL quarterback was, an important part of me. I actually had a lot of embarrassment acknowledging that even to myself, because I'm one of those people like, if you have an accomplishment, you shouldn't, if you haven't accomplished it, you shouldn't like believe it or brag about it, right? On some level. And so like for me, I had to work past that to then be able to accept this is who I truly am, right? And this is who not only who I truly am, but this is who I truly want to be, because this is how I will change the world. And once I accepted that, it was so freeing from an emotional perspective, right? Because it removed all that guilt that I had that was stopping me from freely expressing who I truly was and what I truly wanted to accomplish with my time here on Earth, which is to make the world a better place. That it truly is my goal. And that's a big, hairy, audacious goal, right? And not everybody wants to admit that. But I had to remove that emotional break, if you will, or blockage, whatever you want to call it, in order to truly be able to, on this broadcast, express that. I wouldn't have done that 2 years ago, So.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, and it made me think back to when I was in grad school, and I was, on the path of getting my doctorate in clinical psychology, and I couldn't shake the thought of, going to New York and studying fashion. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that was how I was going to help people. I didn't know how. I didn't know what the connection was going to be, because I was in a really comfortable, position. I had a full scholarship. I was, in a pretty secure path. If I get my PhD, I get a job as a professor or a clinician or a researcher, and I'm good. And I had a full scholarship. I had a teaching position.
The American dream, Nova, the American dream.
Living the dream. Right? And here I am wanting to step away from that to pursue something that was the opposite. It wasn't secure. There was no guarantee. There was no pre-laid path. And I was judging myself. I was like, well, why would you leave, getting your doctorate for being a fashion designer? What is that? This is the inner talk that was going on. And when I removed that and figured out, and I'll be honest, I didn't go through this method that I came up with recently, but when I removed the judgment, what came to me was that I really wanted to impact the history of fashion. I really wanted to make a change in a positive way that can inspire other creatives and other individuals that love that space as much as I did. And that's what I held on to, and that's what guided me and gave me the confidence to pivot. And so again, when we identify that reason, and if it feels good, it feels, and that feeling is powerful. It's not like well, I don't know.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, yeah. It's one of those, I will die for this, or it's crazy what you will sacrifice on the path to accomplishing your why once you discover your true why, right? I mean, money, relationships sometimes, security, like you're talking about, as far as the illusion of security from a job, right? It's all things we sacrifice because we're working toward this, big, hairy, audacious why that people like you and I, entrepreneurs have, that's the reality. I mean, the entrepreneurial journey is not easy. And it's not for the faint of heart, and it takes a huge, compelling why to take that risk, stick through the ups and downs, and hopefully emerge on the other side successful and actually a better person for the journey.
Absolutely. And, I also want to emphasize that those whys can change along your journey, and that's okay, like yours did.
And they will.
Right?
Yeah.
And they will. And I think it's so important to reassess your whys? I mean, I say every 3 months, I think you should, because I feel that it's so easy for us to get into a routine due to circumstance, and then that quickly builds into this, endless maze or roller coaster, and now you have this huge to-do list, this task list that you're just getting up every day just to check, 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 and it's really left field from your true purpose or passion, and so I think it's really good to check in, because maybe the why for why you decided to, I don't know, let's just say move to a new city, is different now that you've been there, for 12 months. And if you're unhappy, then reassess, why am I here? And when my husband and I and my kids were living in New York, and when I was in fashion schools in New York, I moved away for a few years and could not wait to move back. Like, that was my mission. I was going to get back to New York City. And then finally, our family moved back, and we were there for many years, almost 10 years. And the reason why I needed to be in New York at that time, I was like, I want to pursue my dream. I want to launch my own fashion company. I want to change the world through fashion, this. And, my family grew from 2 to 4, and now we're getting closer to like the 7-year mark of being in New York, 8-year mark. And then I started feeling like I was running empty on what New York was to me in terms of inspiration. And it wasn't giving me what it once did when I first was there. And I had to really evaluate, well, why am I still here if I'm not inspired anymore? And it's so important as creatives that we don't ignore when that well is running dry, and because without that inspiration, without the, refilling of what gives you that kick to get up every day, what gives you that, the boost of ideas that you have, without that, then you're not going to perform at your best. And so I think it's so important to do that reevaluation, maybe every 3 months, maybe 6 months, be every year and a half, whatever that marker is for you, and check in to make sure that it's still in line with your true purpose.
I agree, because especially as creators, like as you and I are, like, if you don't have that why, like you don't have that, like you said, that creative inspiration. Well, once it runs dry, like, it's impossible to do your job. Like, I mean, how, this isn't adding numbers, right? Like, once that well is dry, the part of you that is your moneymaker, like, it's empty. There's no more ideas. There's no more beautiful phrasing or beautiful art or beautiful, in your case, like, fashion design, right? Like, you're done. Like, you can't fake it, right? And so, like, it's super important for creators like us to like I said, check in and remain inspired, right? And that takes work. It's not just something that happens. We like to think the inspiration is like this gift from God or the universe, and it is, but, it can be nurtured. It can kind of be not gamified, but like, do the things required to ensure or to improve the odds that you're going to have more days of inspiration than not, right? And that's really the key to success in the field of creativity.
I want to ask you, how would someone recognize, let's say they don't have this check-in, this regular check-in, and they're doing their thing, they started an enterprise or a new project, and they are like, I want to do this for this reason, and they're gung-ho. How would someone recognize when it's time to check in or when it's time to reevaluate, in your opinion?
It really is so that everybody talks about when they're super passionate, they like jump out of bed and they're ready to attack the day. And that's great. And the reality is we have good and bad days. And you don't wake up every day, I don't care how inspired you are, ready to, tackle the day. Some days you just don't have it. But, you're going a week, 2 weeks, a month, right? And you're not coming up with new ideas. You're not feeling motivated to put in the work, whether it's research, whether it's writing, whether it's interviews, whether it's, making sales calls. You're not putting in that work that you need to do in order to, move your business, move your idea forward, right? That stuff starts happening, and you're just not in the mood to essentially do what you need to do to be successful, it's time to check in and be like, have I lost my creativity, or am I just burned out and I simply need to recharge, whether that's, take a few days off, get more sleep, start meditating or start whatever. People recharge in different ways. So, once you know what recharges you and you try that and you're not recharged, then more than likely you're no longer creatively inspired. And that could be because the work is no longer it's no longer creatively inspirational to you. Maybe it's a family issue. Maybe you have something going on in your family or friends that are distracting you from really tapping into that creative inspiration, that creative potential, right? And once you kind of go through that process of elimination, then it comes down to questioning. Okay, if it's friends and family? Can I remove myself from those people? And the answer is yes, then that's what you do. If the answer is no, then, you have to come up with different solutions. If it's, I'm no longer creatively inspired by the work I'm doing, then it's okay. Is it I have to completely quit this job, quit this business that I'm in, or can I pivot it? Can I change it somewhat to where I'm now a little bit inspired, right? And it's a process, and it's not clean. It's not easy. It's as much of a journey figuring that out as it is a journey of, the entrepreneurial journey, right? It's full of ups and downs and twists and turns to figure that out. But it's definitely worth the journey, worth the process, because without that creative inspiration, like I said, they empty as well, and your moneymaker is no longer making you money. So
that's so true. And, I think also a lot of us we start a path that may begin as early as high school in terms of choosing something that you want to do in life, or maybe even sooner. Maybe it's middle school, and you're on this path, and it's like boom, 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 and let's just say I want to be a volleyball player, and so you're doing all these volleyball tournaments, and this is just all you've done, and now you're in college, and you're the volleyball player, and then you're not happy anymore. You're not enjoying that experience. And, I think that we forget that we have a choice to pivot, when it's time to pivot. Or let's say for me anyway, when I was a freshman, I changed my major like 3 or 4 times because I just wasn't enjoying the courses. I was taking a lot of science courses, biology, anatomy, and physiology. I did like physics, by the way, but I was taking a lot of science courses, and I just didn't enjoy them. And so I wanted to find something. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be in school. I'm paying for these courses, and this is my time. I want to at least enjoy what I'm learning. And I then started to look for something else to major in. I ended up right back into pre-med, but but I think that a lot of us are afraid to pivot. Well, one, either we don't think we can choose or change course.
Right.
Or we're afraid to because of what may be thought of us if we do. Like some people may feel that it's, either their family or friends or whomever may see them as a failure or a quitter. So how do you navigate around that? So you're not feeling good, but
to me, it's important to remember that we change. Like people evolve, right? Like I don't know about you, I changed tremendously from 18 to 21, and then from 21 to 25, right? And then even from 25 to 30, like in some ways it's ridiculous that we expect people to choose. When you're in college, choose a major at 18 and expect them to know what the hell they want to do when they're 35 years old, right? I mean, some people do. Some people know they want to be a doctor, and they're a doctor, and they're happy the whole way through. I was much more like you. I was like, I don't have a clue what I want to do, right? And I mean, I graduated law school, and I wasn't sure I wanted to be a lawyer. I mean, it took me a long time to really figure out what I truly want to do. And I think just knowing and accepting that change is inevitable. Change is okay. Matter of fact, I think it's exciting personally, but not everybody does. But it's inevitable. It's okay. And, just because you no longer love doing what you're doing and you want to change careers completely doesn't make you a failure. It just means that you've moved beyond where you were, and this new path is going to re-energize you and ultimately make you happier. Because it's weird. Truthfully, happiness is in the it's in the journey toward achieving a goal. Like, that's really where the happiness is. I mean, we achieve it, we're super happy for a few seconds, but like true ultimate happiness is in that constant, persistent pursuit of your potential, and it's on that journey toward achieving a goal. That's really where people are happy. And that's why when people like get stagnant, like in their career, that's why they're miserable, because they're no longer working toward anything. They're stuck where they are, and you can't go. That sucks. I don't know about you, but I hate not being able to progress. Right? Like, it's a miserable place to be. And so like talking about like that knowing when it's time to like creatively pivot. If you feel you're stuck, it's time to creatively pivot, because you're happiest when you're working toward a goal. Now, not to say you're not going to have ups and downs, but you're still happiest working toward that goal. Progress.
So
humans love moving forward. We just do, whether it's physically or whether it's emotionally or intellectually, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, this is a good time to recognize our sponsor, and then we can get to some questions from our listeners. And so this episode is brought to you by the Pink Kangaru Network, and that's Kangaroo with a U, and it's a new podcast network for wild thinkers. So if you are a host and an amazing storyteller and looking for like-minded listeners, then Pink Kangaroo is your home. And if you're a listener and you want to be inspired, educated, or entertained, definitely check out the Pink Kangaroo, that's Kangaroo with a U, network. All right, so I am excited to get to our questions from our listeners, and these were sent in before the show. So you ready?
I am. I'm super excited about this. Yeah.
All right.
I love Q&A.
Question number 1. Is the to-do list still a thing? If so, how can I make it most efficient?
So, if you want to look at to-do list as in like literal term to-do list, absolutely not. Because really what to-do lists end up being for most people is a bunch of task crap that you need to get done, right? And if that's all you want to get done for your day, they're fine. But if you're really wanting to move your business, move your life toward a direction, really what you need is you kind of need like a essentially like you and I talk about, right? Like have your big, huge, hairy, audacious goals, which are 3 to 5 years out. Have your 1 year goal, then reverse engineer that to what you're going to do in the next month, week, day to get that done. That's kind of how I view to-do list too, right? You prioritize the big major things that you need to get done that will move your business, move your life forward in the biggest way. So it's like return on investment, right? And those are the things that need to be at the top of your list that you're going to get done no matter what else comes up that day. And of course, life happens and not everything is done. But those are the things that should be non-negotiable 98% of the days that you're working, right? And once those are done, because those are the big things that move your life, your business forward, then you can go down to those tasks that are just what I call rat killing tasks, like just things you have to get done because they are the things you have to get done because they're things for life, get your hair done, call the doctor, go to the dentist, whatever they may, go grocery shopping, whatever they may be, right? And if you're in a financial position where you can afford to hire people to do those, then that's actually a better thing to do too, because if you're looking for because time is money, as a lot of people say. If you're looking at, that math, if you can hire somebody to do it at $35 an hour, but yet you're making $300 an hour doing what you're doing, why would you not hire somebody so you can work an extra hour making, money, right? But most people are in that situation. But that's kind of how I view to-do lists.
Okay.
That if that makes sense.
No, it does. I have a different perspective. I don't disagree with the goal setting and the prioritizing. I absolutely agree with that. And I do think that, yes, sometimes it's this, list of 100 tasks and it's absolutely useless. So actually I do agree with that. I used to actually live by to-do lists, and I had some very inefficient to-do lists, and then figured out how to make them more efficient, and now I've really simplified them. And so I would be the one that would literally write down my wish list of all the things I wanted to do for that day. And sometimes it'd be 20 things, right? And then you feel miserable at the end of the day because maybe you got to 3 or 4 of them. And then the next day rolls around, and now that's rolling into the next day, and you're adding another 20. And so then you, again, have this sort of feeling of failure, and it continues, and you become less productive. So then I came across a system where you take your list and you divide it into 3 categories. You have your personal, you have business, and then you have family. Yes, so personal, business, family, whatever that is. And even if you're single, there's still family stuff, you know, if you're sister, cousin, whatever, right? And then you create just 3 things within those 3 categories. And then that seemed much more doable. Like, oh, okay, so for personal, I want to meditate, I want to do this, I want to do that. And now I literally 3 things. That's it. But I don't care if it's personal or whatever. If I'm going to really prioritize and really zero in on what are those 3 things that are going to move the needle forward. And it's one, you know, it could be 1 for family, 1 for business, 1 for personal. And whatever it is, it should be moving the needle forward in whatever goal I have, period. And if I can check off, and most people can check off 3 things. I mean, really, like 3 things for the day. And then you feel accomplished, and that weight doesn't carry over with you the next day. And then you feel like you're just getting heavier and heavier as the day goes on, and eventually you're like, forget it, I'm done. This isn't working. And so now I have my 3-item list. But I do think to-do lists do work. I think there's some magic in just writing things down and not just typing it in your phone, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also think you made 2 super important points. One of them is, the thing about to-do lists is you do whatever, like structure-wise, whatever works for you. If like what you described works, that's great. If what I've described works, that's great. If something that neither one of us described is working for you, that's great. That's one thing. There's no one right to-do list. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap. Another thing that you said that I think was super important is, you know, the guilt felt for not accomplishing that long to-do list every day, right? And the weird thing about it is, like, we create this to-do list, and it's self-imposed guilt, self-imposed. No one is like looking over our shoulder going, you didn't get your 20 things done today, right? So we're creating this list that's ultimately making ourselves miserable, right? And I think yeah, we are. It's the irony of it, right? And I think the fact that you notice and acknowledge that, right? 3 things a day, especially if they're big tasks that are moving you forward, that's about the max, and that's the reality of it. It's about 3 to 4 things a day, maybe 5 if you're super efficient and they're not super huge things. That's about all you're really going to get done that is going to make an impact, right? And knowing that, accepting that, acknowledging that, I think really does also. It sets realistic expectations, which is hugely important as well, because if your expectations are unrealistic, then you're always going to fail and you're always going to feel bad. And if your expectations are realistic and you accomplish them, you're going to do like you said. You're going to feel super good about what you've accomplished for that day. That's important because that's reinforcing. So anyway, I think that was very well done on your part, and noticing that, acknowledging that, and then, you know, creating a system that not only works for you, but that's self-reinforcing as you accomplish it as well, right? Because it motivates you the next day to want to get up and do it again, right? So
yeah, no, it's like being you're an athlete, you know. I like to consider myself an athlete, even though I'm not in any competitions. But for most of my adult, teenage years and everything, and I think it's just like if you're on a team or in a sport and you do accomplish that little thing, you know, the coach is giving you the instructions and you finally get it. And then the next day comes and then you see that progress. And you don't want your list to be the ball and chain that holds you back. Right. And a lot of times that was the thing that would be holding me back, and that guilt, like you said, you're like, what am I doing to myself? And I think what's also important is when you're forced to pick one thing, you know, or 3, you know, overall, then it really leads you to prioritize what is the most important thing. You know, what is most pending, what is most urgent? Because, there are a lot of things I would like to do, and if the reality is if I have 2 speaking engagements and I have a commitment, to take someone to practice, I won't be able to get all those things done. So what is the most important thing that I can do? And yes, check. I accomplished it. I feel good. And I'm taking that positive energy into the next day. But it also allows you to weed out the things that you don't really need to be doing that become time killers. So that's a really good point, too, that I wanted to bring back up. Let's see if we have time for a couple more. We have some good ones. This one I think is really good. I don't know if it's going to stump us, though. What's the difference between knowing my purpose and knowing my passion is another question from one of our listeners.
That is a good question. And really, they sound like they'd be similar, but they're not. Because really what passion is it's really what gives you that fire, what gives you that energy to get up every morning and really tackle big, hairy, audacious goals, right? To deal with those setbacks, to deal with the ups and downs, and anytime you're trying something huge, difficult, never been done before, whatever, it's never a straight path. It's never just super easy. It's always going to be two steps forward, one step back. It's just going to be that way, right? And so that passion is what allows you to continue during those moments of doubt, during those moments of fear, right? During those moments when your family or your friends are like, why don't you quit this and go get that safe, secure job, right? Why are you staying up at 2 a.m, creating your first book, your first novel, your podcast, whatever you're doing, right? And that's what passion allows you to do that. Purpose is where you put that passion, right? Purpose is what are you here on earth to do, right? Are you here, like in my case, are you here to inspire leaders to achieve more, to think bigger, to be better, right? It took me a long time to get there, but that's what my purpose. Like I said, leader. I really enjoy leading people to think bigger, better, bolder, whatever, right? And so my passion fuels my purpose. And so that's kind of how I view them. So, if everything is aligned, they work together beautifully. If they're not, then, that doesn't mean things don't work, because I know people who, have huge passion for, and they put their passion in their hobbies, whether it's, volunteering or whether it's, extreme sports. That's where their passion lies. But their purpose is somewhere else, whether it's, their purpose is actually to be a lawyer or their purpose is to be an accountant or whatever, right? And their passion and purposes don't align, but they're also people who don't jump out of bed and ready to tackle the day every day. That they work to support their passion, whereas when your passion and purpose is aligned, your work is your passion and your passion is your work, right? And those of us that are lucky enough to have those two aligned, we are blessed. Everybody else doesn't mean you can't be happy. You just got to find it somewhere else other than work.
Sorry, you just have to find it somewhere else. No, I love your explanation of that. I see purpose as that lighthouse, and I see passion as the boat, the engine, the path that takes you to the lighthouse. And so I see the lighthouse as the light that's spinning and trying to get your attention and trying to draw you to it. And
it's guiding you.
It's guiding you. And I think depending on your life circumstances, and let's just equate it to stormy night, depending on how big the waves are, or how far away you are from the lighthouse, it's going to be harder for you to figure out what the purpose is. And I think that if you focus on finding those things...
There we go.
Can you hear me? Yeah, so
I can now.
I think that if you identify the things that bring you joy and you try to do more of those things in your day-to-day life, then I think it's the purpose of what you should be doing becomes clearer and clearer to you. And you can use those things that bring you joy to activate your purpose. So, for example, I absolutely have a passion for fashion. Surprise, surprise. But what I love about fashion is the textiles and the fabric, the history behind it, and how clothing and culture intertwine, and how fashion really is a way of telling the history of a time period and the power of communication as it relates to clothing and how we feel. And so there's all these things that are wrapped up in fashion. And it completely makes sense to me why I was drawn to psychology. And, you know, I do believe my why is to help people. And I want to understand the human, the mind, behaviors, emotions, and how we can enhance those things and how we can use our environment and the things that we're given to enhance those things. And then my passion is the fashion, you know, not the only thing, because I love the arts and I love dancing and I love expressing myself, and I see clothing as a way to express yourself. So how can I help others use this really powerful tool to express themselves? So that is a combination of bringing together the purpose with the passion, you know, and by zeroing in on the thing that I enjoy to do, help really clarify and guide me towards my purpose, you know. And so I thought initially it was just research or just clinical work. And what I realized is I can take that love of research and I could take that one-on-one, you know, advising, and I could bring it into the space of fashion that I have a passion for. So those were tools, and the passion was fashion, and the purpose was helping others. And so, as you said, if you're able to align all of those things, and you've hit jackpot, right?
Yeah.
You know, for some, it takes a lifetime. But the goal, I think, is to really just focus on doing more of what you enjoy in your personal life, in your relationships, in your work life. And then that's going to sort of clear that path. That's what's going to like calm the storm, so you more clearly can identify your purpose.
No, I agree. I have to say, ancillary comment to your fashion thing. This is Chris Carter said this one time on the show. He's like, he was talking about when he was, you know, when he was playing professional football, and how he paid like exquisite attention to detail for his uniform. And just the quote was, you know, if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you perform good. And that's so simple but so profound, right? Like if you feel like you look good in your clothes, like you literally feel good, right? And when you literally feel good about the way you look, like whether it's like you look sexy, whether you look professional, whether, you know, you look fly, whatever it may be, then you're going to go out and you're going to perform at the best level you can possibly perform at whatever task the clothes are reflecting, right? Like if you're in that, you know, if you're in that business suit, you're going to get up and you're going to give that like, kick-ass presentation, right? You know, if you're out there looking sexy in a little cocktail dress, you know, you're going to be fun and flirty and conversational and, like, you know, meeting new people, right? Like, it's it's amazing how much clothes, and like I said, like the textiles and the color and the fit, how much it truly does affect psychology, you know? And it's like, once you know that, why not use that to your advantage?
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And, you know, when I'm designing, I really focus on the inside of the garment just as much as the outside, because I believe that what you're seeing before it touches your skin is going to have an impact. How it feels against your skin is going to have an impact. And if you know the inside of the garment has just as much care and attention to it as the outside, that's also going to make you feel good. But there's also this parallelism as well, where that's the same as us as, you know, beings. Like our inside is just as important, you know, how we feel and how we perceive things as what we're portraying on the outside. And what we're portraying on the outside can be a direct reflection of what we're feeling on the inside, right? And vice versa. Yeah. You know, if you're putting on a cozy sweater, then you're going to just like relax more back into the couch, and, you know, or if you're putting on this super tailored suit, all of a sudden the shoulders go back, the chin goes up, you know, and so there is this interaction and play that goes into what you're wearing and how you're feeling. And as entrepreneurs, it's something you can absolutely use to your advantage in your toolkit. You know, even if you're not an entrepreneur, you know, yes, clothing is functional, absolutely keeps us warm and protected, blah, blah, blah. but it is such a powerful tool to help you feel a certain way, and then also how to express yourself to the world. And we see that in cultures, throughout the globe, and how they use their clothing and their colors and patterns to really express their history and their identity within the community, and their artistry. So I think that's an excellent point, that maybe an athlete, an entrepreneur, a mother, you can really take advantage of all the tools that are around you at your disposal, and clothing is absolutely one of them.
And it's another way of sending a message without actually having to say a word, to everybody that sees what you're wearing, right? And that's, something it's super powerful and to be aware of as well.
I agree. And we just have a few more minutes before we want to wrap up. And so I just want to circle back so we can summarize the why and our topic for today, and how important it is to start with your why. And if you can remember the simple method of taking a piece of paper, trust me, writing down something, I know it seems a little archaic, but it does make a difference, and write down why you want to do whatever it is. So, and just pick one thing, and maybe you're deciding to change your diet, for example. And why are you doing that? And does that reason, once you answer, does that reason feel good or not so good? And then you do that 3 times. You peel the onion layer, right? So you ask the why, you get the answer, see how it feels. If it feels good, keep going. If that answer feels good, keep going. And so you've truly examined why you're doing that. If it doesn't feel good, then maybe not make that choice, or maybe you need to re-examine why you're doing it. So that's just something I want to leave you with. Ryan, do you want to say anything else about starting with your why?
I'm not starting with, but kind of following for what you're saying. I think something that's super important, too, is to really, like you mentioned earlier, remove the judgments from your reasons why. I'm big, as long as your why isn't hurting yourself or somebody else, does it really matter why you're doing something to somebody? An example I bring up with you all the time is working out. I'm a huge believer that you will work out for vanity much harder than anyone ever will for health. Now, while you're working out for vanity, you will become much, much healthier, but people who work out for vanity are always in better shape than people who work out just for health, right? And that's not the most PC reason to work out. But you know what I'm saying? But if that's your why, and you're not hurting anybody else or yourself, and you're actually getting in better shape, use that. If that's what gets you out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning to go hit the gym, use it. Don't be ashamed of it. Embrace it. Go with it, because then you will be you will now look better, feel better, perform better than you would have if you didn't embrace it and you didn't get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning to go work out. So that's a big one too. Just try to remove the judgments from your why, because a lot of guilt comes with that. We have a lot of history that we all deal with. So excellent closing point. So start with the why, re-examine, and please, when you are assessing your why, do it without judgment. So important. I want to thank you, all our listeners, for joining us for another episode of Unleash Your Supernova. And this is a new format, so we are going live with my co-host, Ryan Anderson. And I want you to, if you haven't already, check out the book, get the book, pre-order it. It's released March 16th, but it's available now for pre-order, and it's available at all your favorite bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and all the others. So definitely go and get your copy of Unleash Your Supernova so you can begin to tap into your inner brilliance. Again, this episode is brought to you by the Pink Kangaru Podcast Network, and that's Pink Kangaru with a U, and it's a community of wild thinkers. So until next time, thanks again, and bring your questions. Looking forward to chatting with you again. And thank you so much, Ryan. It was so much fun. Of course. Thank you, Nova.